Now I'm going to tell you right now, that is the most nonsensical constitution you can ever find in the whole world, which violates the inalienable rights and inherent rights of indigenous people.
Yeah.
South Africa is an identity imposed on us. We are not South Africans. South Africa is not a state.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can challenge me if they want. They must go into the law, how South Africa was established. The victims, which are the indigenous monarchs, which are the high contracting party in terms of the law of occupation, they are not party to anything.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's Eye. Today I have a very special guest who's going to give us a new perspective, really, about the land issue in the country, the whole row about, or rather the whole noise, the noise about expropriation of land, Donald Trump's and Elon Musk throwing tantrums at South Africa because of what they call the genocide against white Afrikaners. Whether that is there or not, those are the issues we're going to discuss today. His name is Dingizwe Mkhatshwa. He's from the Indigenous Forum. It's the first time most people will be hearing about the Indigenous Forum, but he's going to tell us what is it about first, and then we'll really go into this land issue of South Africa, the land issue, and whether South Africa's standing as a country. Is it a legitimate country? Is it not? Many issues we're going to cover about this. Dingizwe, my brother, welcome to the People's Eye.
Thank you. And I really appreciate to be hosted by the People's Eye. My name is Dingizwe Mkhatshwa.
Did I say Shongwe?
Yeah, you said Shongwe.
Oh, my apologies, my apologies. I don't know where did this come from.
Shongwe is still my same name because I'm indigenous.
Of course.
But yeah, like I said, my name is Dingizwe Mkhatshwa, the director of Indigenous Forum.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to be here to deal with the issues intrinsically, very deep into their historic realities.
Yeah.
And that's the reason Indigenous Forum was established.
Okay.
It was established last year. We are 3 directors. I am the CEO.
Okay.
Maybe to go quick into what Indigenous Forum stands for.
Yeah.
You will be aware that the indigenous issues, in terms of their rights, in terms of their sovereignty, has not been dealt with adequately and fully. The powers that be it politician, the regional, continental, and international bodies,
yes,
they have never actually placed the indigenous issues in their right perspective.
Okay.
Now, Indigenous Forum has been established to put the issues of the indigenous people into its real, historic, moral, spiritual, and godly perspective. This is the nucleus of the establishment of the Indigenous Forum to represent and to promote and protect the rights of indigenous people, more especially the rights of the indigenous monarch throughout the continent of Africa, not only in South Africa. Indigenous Forum represents the aspirations of the indigenous monarchs and the indigenous people.
Okay.
Yes.
We know of AfriForum, which is representing a particular group. But you have explained really what you stand for, who you are. But some people will still be asking, indigenous people, who are those people you're talking about? If you can just unravel and try to get to the bottom of it so that people understand.
My brother, through history, the African people have been indoctrinated into believing identities that doesn't belong to them. And the powers that be, they were so smart that they have positioned themselves in a way that this misrepresentation turns out to be the real truth. Let me give you a very interesting phenomenon in this country. You've made mention of AfriForum. If you look at AfriForum, they are promoting or protecting the interest of the Afrikaner. But let's look into the history of what an Afrikaner is. And nobody has ever looked into that history. In English, Afrikaner means Afrikaner or African. Now, this Afrikaner, who are they historically? Let's ask ourselves that. How did they find themselves here in this part of the world? History tells us they were brought in by the Goedehoop, the Reiger, those ships. Are they indigenous to this part of the world? No. Where do they come from? They come from Holland. They are Dutch by identification. Now, why did they end up calling themselves or identifying themselves as Afrikaner? It's got the whole lot of permutation around it. From historic and legal perspective. My brother, I cannot go to China, stay in China for 400 years, and decide and wake up one day and say, I'm Chinese. It's impossible. Why should I identify myself as Chinese when I know that I'm not Chinese? There must be a reason for that. And I'm going to detail that reason. Unfortunately, we are going into it very early in the conversation.
It's fine. We can get back to it. At least you've explained that, but I wanted you just to now go back to the indigenous people that you are representing.
Exactly. The indigenous people are Africans. From Cape to Morocco, or from Cape to Egypt, and Morocco to Madagascar. The indigenous people are African. Any other, it's not indigenous. Their status, it's very simple. They are settlers. They can. I can go to England for millions of years. I'm not English. I'll be a settler there, even my generation after. So indigenous people means the indigenous people of that particular land or territory or continent.
Yeah.
That's who we are.
Okay.
And that's what we represent.
Okay.
And we represent the historic aspiration of the indigenous people.
Yeah.
And the future of the indigenous people.
Okay.
In the socio-economic and political conversation.
Yes.
We represent those aspirations.
Okay, great. Yeah, now, then that brings me to this point. Okay, you represent Africans, myself included, of course. You're representing us. Okay, what do you aim to achieve now? You are here. Of course, there's a lot of history that is lost, that is unknown, that has been distorted about the indigenous people of Africa, in particular, because we're in South Africa.
Yes.
So what do you aim to achieve?
Wow. That question is a very broad question. The political climate in Africa is that of occupation, invasion and occupation.
Yes.
The indigenous people were invaded by European forces.
Yeah.
From time immemorial, that history is there.
Yeah.
We are hoping to rewrite the truth of the indigenous people,
Yes.
their systems, their customs, their traditions, their culture, their humanity, and their connection to their God. This is what we represent and what we are hoping to achieve.
Touching a point of they were invaded. There was, well, we all know, invasion of Africa by different, in our case, the Dutch. I'm not sure. We were first invaded in 1652, or this is the first recorded arrival of whites? I mean, there's a difference. Was it the first time that a white man set his foot on the piece of land that today is known as Western Cape in South Africa?
Yeah.
Or this was the first recorded event? There have been occupations before? I don't know.
My brother, that is the misinformation of European media, European authority, for a particular reason. For those who know history, they will go back to the Battle of Salt River.
Yeah.
Salt River is in the Western Cape.
Yes.
On the 1st of March, 1510,
Okay.
when General de Almeida tried to occupy Goreng Haikwa Kingdom.
Yes.
Goreng Haikwa, it's a nation that today is called the Khoi, which is a misrepresentation as well.
Okay.
They are not Khoi, they are Goreng Haikona. That was after the invasion edicts of dam diverses of the 18th of June 1452 that instructed the European monarchs to invade, to conquer, to fight, and subjugate the indigenous monarchs.
So that's where the whole thing of occupation of Africa started.
Exactly.
1452.
1452.
Okay.
Now, subsequent to Dam Diverses, there was a Romanus Pontifex of the 18th January 1454, which instructed the European monarchs or the European power to invade, search out, underline that, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all the indigenous monarchs.
Yeah.
And to take all their kingdoms, their dominions, their movable and immovable property away from those people.
Yeah.
Now, this edict brought about the doctrine of discovery,
Okay.
which was made law in America and throughout the world, which says those Christian forces that invaded the indigenous people, when they go into the territory and those people are not Christians, now those people are non-existent, they don't exist. So they have discovered that place. How can you discover the place that was there when it's inhabited by people? How do you do that? Now, this doctrine of discovery set the tone for constitutionalism in the world, including our own constitution in South Africa.
Okay.
The Constitution of South Africa is based on the doctrine of discovery. That is why we have to be constituted by that law. But then, remember, the indigenous monarchs were there.
Yes.
The Goringhaikwa was there.
Yes.
The Zulu kingdom was there.
Yes.
Abatembu were there. Amampondo Mise were there. Baroka, where I was born, were there. Bahula were there. Amahlubis were there. Those were the indigenous states of that time in terms of the Montevideo Convention, in terms of the characteristics of states.
Okay.
So the Europeans, they used the doctrine of discovery to annul us and for them to impose what they've imposed to the present day South Africa. South Africa is an identity imposed on us. We are not South Africans. It's either we are Zulu or Singabatembu or Baroka or Bahula or we Goringhaikwa. We are not what they say we are. That's a wrong identity.
Because fast forward to 1910, the establishment of the Union of South Africa, the indigenous people were left out of those discussions when the British and the Boers decided that, look, let's come together, let's form one country.
You're bringing a very interesting subject. Remember that I don't call them Boers. I don't even call them Afrikaner. I call them Dutch because that's the right identity. And they are not Boers. Boer means farming in Dutch. So that's not an identity. Afrikaner means African. They are not African, they're Dutch. So they can never be called Afrikaner. They are Dutch. Now, when the Dutch came here, they established what they established after they fought with the Goreng Haikwa.
Yeah.
And the British came in. When the British came in, they started, weighing their power struggle on indigenous territories, two foreigners coming into your land and start fighting for your land and without you being involved.
Yeah.
So remember, history says those who came here from Holland, they were prisoners. Now, then they became free beggars, meaning that free citizen. Burger in Dutch means citizen.
Yeah.
Now, they became free Dutch citizen on Goreng Haikwa soil, right? Then when the British came, they started having this fight, between the Dutch and the British, to an extent where now the British bought land from the Dutch, the land that belongs to Goreng Haikwa. Very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the wars ensued, they moved away looking for new lands. The Dutch, the Dutch folks. Then they were called voortrekker.
Yeah.
They trekked, meaning they left the Western Cape inland.
Inland, yeah.
Where they found Basotho. Where they found the San Basotho. They invaded those territories.
Yeah.
Then they put their authority there. The Orange Free State.
Yeah.
So they became free from the British in the Western Cape, and they called the land of Basotho Oranje Free State.
Yeah, Orange Free State, as it was, yeah.
And they even got a permission to name that territory Orange, because Orange comes from Orange Nassau, which is the Kingdom of Orange in Holland, which now calls for questioning what Oranje means. Oranje comes from orange. So it's basically another Dutch invasion on indigenous territories, you know?
Yeah.
So, my brother, the whole thing about the European invaders, it was a planned thing. It was not an accident. I'm connected to various indigenous monarchs.
Yeah.
I often ask them, did you invite those people to come over here? Did you send them an invitation letter or something like that? I mean, maybe we might be wrong when we are trying to deal with these issues.
Yeah.
Did you invite them? They said no. Did you give them any rights? No. They invaded us.
Yeah.
And the walls are there to be shown in terms of prove that point. So nothing of their existence on our territory has been permitted by us as indigenous people. But obviously, they took advantage of our humaneness, that we welcome visitors. It's our nature as indigenous people, as Africans. It's how God created us.
Yeah.
And they misused that humanity. And they turned us into settlers on our own territory. I mean, you go to Western Cape.
Yeah.
Goreng Haikwas are nowhere to be seen in the conversation. The owners of the land are nowhere to be seen. And everyone is claiming that land. Now, recently you've got those who want Western Cape to be independent. And you look at them, it's not even Goreng Haikwa. They are the people who invaded Goreng Haikwa's territory. They want independence from who?
Okay. Yeah, I get it's very important part of history. which clarifies the whole thing about land occupation, invasion in Africa, in South Africa. But now, just looking at the present situation now, there's been land reform, which really intends, I'm not sure if it's achieving that according to your opinion, to return the land back to the original owners. There's this whole thing of land expropriation now. From what you're explaining and where we are right now, that returning the land to the original people, has it really happened? Is it happening? Is it the real thing? Should it happen the way it is happening now? Or no, it should happen differently? Because now you mentioned an important point that the land was under monarchs.
Yes.
When the white men arrived. But now...
When Europeans arrived, they're not white. They're Europeans.
Okay, when Europeans arrived. But now, yes, they were monarchs. But now, after 1994, obviously, land reform, land restitution. But what is happening there? Is land being returned to the real owners, the previous owners, or what is happening? Is it the right way? Or is just an exercise to, for the sake of it, to say now we are free, now land is being returned to black people, but is it being returned the appropriate way?
When you speak of land, the returning of the land, you're talking of the land that was expropriated from the original owners. Now, the original owners and the structure of ownership was a monarch in Africa.
Yeah.
And a monarch was owning land in trust for the nation. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
King Charles is owning the whole of Britain in trust of the British people.
Yeah.
That is why you will never find land issues in Britain, because they know how is it owned. Even if you go to the United Arab Emirates, it's the same system.
Yeah.
All right? So when you talk of land reform, land expropriation, land return, the whole exercise of land reform was misplaced.
Yeah, yeah.
And for a reason. If you're talking issue of expropriation, the right term will be dispossession, which is understood politically. Legally we will call it land expropriation for it to look good.
Yeah.
But it's basically land dispossession. You're dispossessing that land.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
The land of our forefathers was dispossessed by Europeans. And their sovereignty usurped. And after they usurped their sovereignty, they imposed their laws on our land and our sovereignty without free, prior, and informed consent of those monarchs.
Yes.
Now, the question that I'm going to ask the listeners out there, was that land restored back to the indigenous monarchs in its original format and system? That is the question. The answer is pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
It was never returned. Maybe I did not introduce myself in terms of my expertise.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm an international humanitarian law specialist.
Okay.
And an international criminal law specialist.
Okay.
The reason I'm introducing that is because I'm going to get into the legal issues.
Yeah, legal aspect of this. Yeah.
The illegal aspect of invasion and occupation.
Yeah.
Article 3, subsection B of the Additional Protocol 1 of the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1977 provides that for an occupation to end, there must be re-establishment. I want you to underline that.
Yeah.
There must be re-establishment. Re-establishment of what? Re-establishment of the status, the original status of the land and the territory. And the original status of the land and the territory will be the indigenous monarchs who were sovereign at the time.
Okay.
So you cannot return land and give it to a state that is actually questionable under international law.
Okay.
The state that owned the territory or the sovereignty were monarchs.
Yes.
There was no South Africa when the Europeans came here.
Yes.
They found the Zulus. They found Abatembo. They found Goronhaiko. The history is there to show. There was nothing like South Africa at that time. Where does South Africa comes from? Now, today we have embraced an illegal identity, which is an act of genocide, destroying our own indigenous identities. And nobody's seeing that. Now you wonder why people are blind. There was never South Africa. Why will we embrace South Africa? South Africa was created by British Parliament in 1909.
Yeah.
Assented by King Edward VII on the 20th of September, 1909. And it was a royal proclamation of the 2nd December, 1909, when South Africa was established. So who is South Africa? So, my brother, this country has immense socio-political issues. Which needs to be dealt from the legal perspective. So, Article 3, subsection B says there must be re-establishment and there must be repatriation. That was never done. So, what it then means, the indigenous monarchs are still protected by the Fourth Geneva Convention, which is the law regulating occupation and invasion and colonialism. So the indigenous monarchs are still occupied to the present day.
To the present day.
I'm calling upon all those lawyers to go and look for it. They will find it. It's there. How they interpret it, it's something different. How they were taught to interpret law, it's something different. Because the law can only apply to the facts. What are the facts? The indigenous monarchs were invaded. What is the law of invasion? It's there. The Hague Regulation, the Fourth Geneva Convention, United Nations Charter, and other customary international legal regimes. They need to consult the law for them to be relevant in this conversation. I mean, in South Africa, we much of public opinionators than reasoning going deep into the content. You know.
So essentially, you're saying South Africa is not a country in good standing, so to say, a legitimate country, according to the Geneva Convention.
Not even long before the Geneva Convention. Article 1 of Montevideo Convention of 1933. The Geneva Convention is 1949.
Yes.
In 1933, part of the customary international laws is the Montevideo Convention.
Yeah.
Now, Montevideo Convention provides that for a state to be in good legal standing, it has to have a defined territory.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. It has to have a permanent population.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Mm-hmm. A defined territory, a permanent population.
Yeah.
There must be governance.
Yes.
And you must be able to enter into treaties. Okay? Let's take His Majesty King Mkhatshwa.
Yeah.
Of the Zulu nation.
Yeah.
Or let's take His Majesty King Mkhatshwa of Abatembu.
Yes.
Or let's take His Majesty King Makikele of Baroka Nation.
Yes.
And all other indigenous monarchs.
Yeah.
They had their defined territories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They had their permanent population.
Yes.
And they had their own indigenous governing structures.
Yes.
And they were able to make agreements with whomever. So they qualify for a statehood, provided by international law.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Mm.
Show me South African territory. Defined territory, show it to me. Because King Mkhatshwa can show his territory. King Dingizwe can show his territory.
Mm.
King Makikele can show his territory.
Yes.
King Village of Bahula can show his territory.
Yeah.
Can South Africa show us their territory? They don't have it. Because all the territory belongs to the indigenous monarchs. And they invaded those indigenous monarchs.
Yeah.
Where is their territory? They don't have it. South Africa is a legislation by British Parliament.
Yeah.
And that cannot be sovereign. Never. Not under any law, even morally. It can't be. South Africa is not a state.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can challenge me if they want. They must go into the law. How South Africa was established.
Yeah. There's something
and how did those who established South Africa came here? That is where they have to go. Ground zero. Let's go to the beginning of this.
Yeah. According to international law, those who occupy South Africa, what is their status?
They remain occupiers. They are criminals. According to the law, they're criminal. They cannot do that. In fact, the provision of the Hague Regulation of 1907 says that an occupier cannot establish sovereignty. Occupation is a temporary administration. So there's no sovereignty on occupation.
Okay.
Now, how did South Africa become sovereign? When they've occupied the indigenous monarchs who were sovereign.
Yeah. Now, my question was going to say, how did the occupiers legitimize their occupation and were able to form a country? Basically the same question that you are raising now.
King Edward VII, after the Anglo-Dutch War, which they call the Anglo-Boer War. After the Anglo-Dutch War of 1902, in 1908, they had a convention. It was held, I think it was in Durban, Bloemfontein, and Cape, something like that. That is when they decide to write a constitution, which was assented by King Edward.
Okay.
You see where the constitutionalism was born. They decided to write a constitution. The South Africa Act of 1909, assented by King Edward. It's a constitution that was written by the Dutch and British invaders of the indigenous monarchs.
Okay. So before to correct things, then it means that act is the one that needs to be challenged in order to correct.
No.
Okay.
You don't challenge that act.
Okay.
You challenge invasion.
Or you challenge or you go further back.
There's a law on invasion.
Okay.
The law says occupation is temporary. Yeah. It can only end when there is re-establishment of the historic authority and the repatriation of this historic sovereignty. That's when occupation ends. I'm putting it to whoever is listening and asking a question. Was that restored? Was Mkhatshwa's sovereignty restored? Was Mtirara's sovereignty restored? Was Makikela's sovereignty restored? Was Pilechi's sovereignty restored? No, it wasn't. There's nothing in the historic evidence that shows the restoration of those sovereignties.
Okay.
Even today, I wonder.
So South Africa is a crime scene, and it is a crime that is still continuing.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
It has not stopped.
Thank you. It is.
International law is there, but nobody's doing anything.
No. But you see, the problem is, hold on.
Well, you are here, of course. Yeah.
Hold on. Yabona mina ngethu mina ngakushaya nyalo. Yabona? Na ngiyamshaya usizwe nje. Wathi ngiyamlimata. Yabona? And then umuzi goes to the police station and say, "Hey, ngibona Mkhatshwa ulimate usizwe." Are they going to open that case? No. They're going to ask you, where is the victim?
Yeah.
Now, in everything that was happening in South Africa, the victims are not party to anything. The victims, which are the indigenous monarchs, which are the high contracting party in terms of the law of occupation, they are not party to anything. They were never party to the South African Convention of 1908 and 1909.
Yes.
They were never party to CODESA. They were never party to any legislation in this country. Legal maxim says an agreement made by two parties cannot affect the third party that is not party to that agreement. Now, how does the Constitution affect indigenous monarchs? How does the law affect indigenous monarchs? Then, hold on. It takes me back to one hot story. I think it's back in 2009.
Yeah.
When King Zwelibanzi, Dalinjab, said he doesn't want to be ruled by politicians. He cannot be ruled by premiers.
Yes, I remember.
You remember that?
I remember.
Now, everybody else thought, Uzwelibanzi uchayile, he's high.
Yeah.
If he was high, and that tells him that he is the king, he cannot be ruled, then let's all go high because we're going to realize the truth. Let's all go high. He was telling the truth. He cannot be ruled by politicians. He is the king.
Yeah, I remember he even said, Zuma is just a mere counsellor. I'm king upon him, unto him.
He is what he is. It's not only Zwelibanzi, His Majesty Zwelibanzi. Sorry for being disrespectful. I should call him His Majesty.
Yeah.
it's not only His Majesty Zolibansi. Ingwenyama, the late Ingwenyama,
Yeah.
Uzolitin.
Yeah.
I had a sitting with him.
Yeah.
And we discussed the very same things in 2019. Unfortunately, I think a year later he passed on.
Yeah.
I had discussions with many monarchs in the country.
Yes.
I sit here with confidence, representing the aspiration of our forefathers, and I don't apologize for that. They know that they cannot be recognized by a politician. They are above politicians. In fact, South Africa does not have the sovereign right over the Zulu monarch or Abatembu or any other monarch. They just an administrator. Go to Article, I think it's 55 of the Hague Regulation that says an occupier is a temporary administrator. It's confirmed, that status of an occupier.
Yeah.
It's confirmed by the United Nations Resolution 1817 of 1962.
Yeah.
After Basotho, eMaswati,
Yes.
and Botswana sent a complaint to the UN in the late 1950s
Yeah.
to say that South Africa is occupying our territory.
Yes.
And in actual fact, last khona mina kethu la eNasport kusemhlabeni weMaswati. According to history, not according to what the occupier has designed.
Yeah. And they just came in, they divided Africa into 53 countries.
Exactly. And that resolution says South Africa must restore umhlaba weBesotho, umhlaba weMaswati, nomhlaba weBotswana. And South Africa has not restored that land. I'm calling everyone who's listening here, go to Google, United Nations Resolution 1817 of 1962. Issues on Basotho, eMaswati, and Botswana.
Yeah.
That resolution still stands even today. So basically, South Africa is contravening the UN resolution by not restoring Lomhlaba weMaswati. And by the way, how does South Africa begin to talk of expropriation of land and not speak of the returning of Lomhlaba weBasotho and Maswati and Botswana? Why is it not discussed? Why?
Yeah.
So South Africa is continuing to dispossess Umhlaba weMaswati. South Africa is continuing to dispossess Umhlaba weBesotho. The whole of Orange Free State belongs to Basotho. It doesn't belong to South Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Mnagethu, South Africa does not have land. Singapore, because all the land belongs to the indigenous monarchs.
For sure.
So the issue on land ihlala ebukhosini.
Yeah.
Kumele iqoqwe ngilamakhosi.
Yeah.
Not the politicians. They don't have the right to talk about land. They're just administrators, imposed administrators.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they voted in 1994, the status still remains the same.
Yeah. Okay. You know, the way you're explaining it, so Cyril Ramaphosa is presiding over nothing, basically, in terms of the law.
You will remember that the Constitution, this Constitution, is the doing of Cyril Ramaphosa and Rolf Meyer. Now, I'm not too sure, but I would think pendulum in this way. Let's go to the nonsensical preamble of the Constitution that says South Africa shall belong to those who live in it.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. It cannot belong to those who live in it. Nithole bani la?
Yeah.
Awukatholi uZulu. Awukatholi umThembu. Awukatholi umRoka. This land belongs to laba bantu. It doesn't belong to all who lives in it. I mean, you get Chinese today, they are...
Because they are living here, then... Yeah.
This is quite interesting. It's hilarious, actually. You can actually discern the capacity of all these guys who are sitting in parliament. Trust me. You look at them. Some, they're with PhDs, they've got degrees and everything else. Some of them, they're even jurists. They're lawyers. But if you tell them that South Africa is an illegal state or an illegal administration, they'll look at you as if you're cookie, you know. You know. I remember I used to have a huge argument with my cousin, who's a senior counsel. I used to tell him that Section 235 of the Constitution provides for self-determination. What's it mean? No. You see, South Africa is one unitary state, so there won't be self-determination for the indigenous monarchs. And what's it mean? South Africa, I mean, the Constitution is the supreme law of the country. I didn't want to argue with him. Because once you go into an argument, akasoze ayibone until he sees it. So I normally say I argue with my peers. The rest I teach. If we have to sit down and argue the legality or the illegality of South Africa, you gotta know international law, customary international law. You gotta know in full international humanitarian law. Because now ngayati, you argue from which legal perspective? I'll be talking alone. I don't want to talk alone. I want to talk with like-minded people. If the law says an occupier cannot establish sovereignty, and the occupier asuge ayo establish a sovereignty in the South Africa Act of 1909, angayishi lapho, aqhubeke ngale new constitution nango 1961, which turns that union into a republic. Uyabona ukuthi yakuphi? Isuka from the union iya ku the republic in 1961. Iyaqhubeka futhi nge the republic in 1983. The third constitution. Now, kunama constitution law 3. The indigenous monarchs are not party to that constitution. Uyabuya futhi Cyril Ramaphosa no Rolf Meyer ngo 1994 and 1996 constitution. The fourth illegal constitution, which is based on the doctrine of discovery. The indigenous monarchs are not party to that. Now, how can these agreements affect them when they were not party to that conversation? When they were not party to that establishment? It's impossible. But you see, when people don't know umtsetfo, when you talk to them, you're talking above their heads. So I'm calling upon South African jurists, more especially indigenous lawyers, to study international law.
So here's my question now. There's a South African constitution, there's international law.
Yes.
What works? How to ensure that the Constitution of South Africa abides with the international law, if the Constitution of South Africa does not abide or is not congruent with the international law, then what does it mean? South Africa is delinquent? Or what does it mean? Clarify these things for us, man. I'm not a lawyer, so and you're coming okay. I'm getting clarity on what you're saying. Historical and even in law, I'm really enlightened here.
I wouldn't say I'm a lawyer. Okay? I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm a student of law. And I qualify to speak on international law, especially international humanitarian law and international criminal law.
Yeah.
Asiye section 233 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Section 233 of the Constitution. Ngicela ungifunele yona mnakethu mhlambe ungifunzele yona ungitshele ukuthi ithini le section leyo. Whilst usayifuna asi-analyze ithi le section the South African courts, right?
Yeah.
Must conform to the provision of international law. It's a must. So the Constitution recognizes international law.
Section 233
of the Constitution. It's in
application of international law.
Yes.
When interpreting any legislation, every court must prefer any reasonable interpretation of the legislation that is consistent with international law.
Yes.
Over any alternative interpretation that is inconsistent with international law.
I know that you're not a lawyer, but this is English. You will be able to interpret what it says. It's simple.
Yeah. When interpreting any legislation, every court must prefer any reasonable interpretation of the legislation that is consistent with international law over any alternative interpretation that is inconsistent with international law. To a layperson, it basically puts the international law above everything else. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Lomnage law is senior counsel. There is nothing above the Constitution, meaning it's unemanga. Oh, I think it's your policies. It's not true. The Constitution is not the supreme law of the country. Never. Now, funds are section 233.
Yeah, of course. And just to divert a bit, is this why other countries do not have constitutions? Like, what's this country? Britain? Does it have constitution? No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to. That's for the benefit of. That's a very important. Of lay people.
That's a very important question you're posing, right? Constitution means you are constituted. You are made by law. You are de jure.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Now, King Charles is de facto. He cannot be constituted. He constitutes.
Okay.
No,
I'm following.
So he doesn't need constitution because he is not constituted by that charter.
Okay, I get you.
So now sovereignty, you must have a constitution, and that constitution itoba is sovereignty yakho. Ngila bantu baphambana khona bangayi understand lento ukuthi ihamba kanjani. Ukuthi why iBritain enganayo i-constitution? Because the king constitute, he cannot be constituted.
Simple explanation.
It's simple as that. So he constituted because he was not discovered. Uyangithola mas?
Yeah.
Thina we were discovered, kumele sibe constituted.
Oh yeah.
The provision, the principle of discovery.
Okay. I get you.
Which comes from Dam Diversus and Romanus Pontifex. The doctrine of discovery. Ngiyo le isiconstitutago because basithole singekho. Then they constituted us.
Okay. Yeah.
Mara bamtholile uCetshwayo angisho.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Cetshwayo whoever bebakhona. Makhosi lo wakhona.
Kungako uZwelibanzi said, I cannot be ruled by these people. Abam understand. Now I'm putting this into perspective. Zwelibanzi cannot be constituted. He constitutes. He has to constitute because he's the king. He's got the same status with King Charles. That is the status Saga Zwelibanzi.
So if the Constitution of South Africa subjects monarchs, then it basically takes their powers away from the Constitution. It basically, they are subjects to the Constitution, in essence.
I'm not getting sayiphinza.
Yeah.
Ngithi mina ngakushaya. Then the witness kube ngiyo le case.
Yeah.
Bayofuna the victim.
The victim, what was the victim?
So the indigenous monarch in this country had, through the passage of history, had not stood up. The last king that actually stood and tried to fight the system was King Zwelibanzi's father.
Yeah.
Sabata.
Yeah.
When he fought the imposition by the apartheid state through Matanzima. He was even arrested for defending his sovereignty.
Yeah.
The one king before Sabata, Bogui chief, Kojabatsingbani, from the Zulu Nation in 1909. Bambata.
Bambata.
Bambata Gamanzinza.
Yeah.
Was fighting invasion and occupation and basically annexation because they had started to impose taxes.
Yeah, the poll tax.
Yes. I'm not going to colonialism in a steps out 3 before colonialism. The first step, it's invasion. You invade.
Yes.
The second step, you occupy.
Yes.
Once you occupy, now you're very comfortable. You start making laws. You annex. Then, you made laws and you are very comfortable. You feel good. Now you're home. It's called colonialism. Now the foreign laws and everything is ruling the indigenous people. But throughout the struggle of the indigenous people talk of colonialism. They don't talk of invasion, which is ground zero. No one. No one. Now, why are they not talking of invasion?
Yeah.
Why are they talking only of colonialism?
Yeah.
Why are they not talking of occupation?
Yeah.
Which crime is bigger between apartheid and invasion? Which crime is bigger?
Surely it should be invasion.
Now, why are you making apartheid a bigger crime when there's a real big crime that's invasion and you're ignoring it as if it never happened or it never existed? If there was no invasion, there was never going to be apartheid.
Yeah.
Indigenous people will continue as indigenous people and indigenous monarchs, living without problems.
Yeah.
Now, why are you living ground zero? It's a systematic thing. It's a psychological thing through the path of history, so that everybody else should focus on apartheid and forget invasion and occupation. Because invasion and occupation, it's a bigger crime.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example in the modern day politics.
Yeah.
In 2022, was it 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine?
Ukraine, yeah.
There is a huge cry globally of that invasion.
Yeah.
And His Excellency Putin was even, issuing a warrant of arrest.
Yeah.
Who was issuing a warrant of arrest for invading our monarchs?
No one, yeah.
Maybe the indigenous kingdoms should take that case back to the ICJ. Why don't we just ruffle feathers? Let the monarchs take the matter back to the ICJ to say, listen, we were invaded.
On their own.
On their own. Because they're the ones labashachi. So the political parties or the liberation movements are just witnesses. They don't have the locus standi in the matter.
Yeah.
Organizations like ANC, PAC, AZAPO, they don't have the locus standi in the matter. It's not their matter. All of these guys in those political parties are subject to those monarchs. So they become witnesses. In this matter, Sufunabani, the victim. Who is the victim? The monarchs. So, surely. We are in this situation in the so-called South Africa because of invasion, not because of apartheid. Apartheid in 1948.
It came years later.
Imagine the distance between 1st of March 1510 and 1948. How many years? You do your calculations.
Yeah, because that brings me to that question I asked earlier. Now the issue of timing as well. The land that belongs to the monarchs, and now we have land reform as law.
Yeah.
But now, what does it consider? For land to be returned is land that was taken on or before 1913. It doesn't go back to the time of invasion.
Le question leyo inginika inkinga. The problem it's giving me is that the present administration doesn't have the right to exist legally in terms of international law. So they cannot make laws.
Yeah.
I will not be free to answer it because I know the status of the state. Lo mthetho lengufundzile mina tells me that an occupier cannot establish a state. An occupier cannot make laws. An occupier is an administrator. An occupation is temporary. That's what the law tells me. Ngisho lo mthetho lo mina ngufundzile.
Yeah.
And ukuthi i-occupation nakumele ngabe yaphela. Kumele lo mhlaba nolombuso lo wathathwela lo mhlaba ubuyisele kubanikati. And bobani labanikati lapho? I remember back in the days. I remember back in the days when I was still the secretary of His Royal Highness, Dikondele Solomon Dlamini, who is one of the elders that I've learned a lot and respect. He used to say, laba sopolitiki baniketwe ngibani imandate ukuthi babuse for status because lo mhlaba wathathwela emakhosi. Lo ANC unikwe ngibani lelungelo lokuthi abuse yena. Ngoba uANC bokumkhondo ukuthi uyothatha lo mhlaba ubise kwabanikati. Now this is what His Royal Highness says. Logically, yes. Nyalo ubusa njani ANC? Nyalo ubusa njani u-EFF or u-PAC or AZAPO or DA or anybody else? Babusa njani? Who gave them the mandate to do that? Because the invasion and occupation, ituguma kosi.
Yeah.
Not the liberation movements.
Yeah.
They just came in recently.
Yeah.
Nobody answered His Royal Highness. Nobody. And I know he was seen by a lot of politicians as someone unruly, lo ngafuna ukulalela. Vele kumele alalele bani phela uyingozi in his own right. And he's a direct descendant of Mswati II. Mswati II is mothered by Utsanzile Ndwandwe from my clan, proudly so.
Yeah.
His Royal Highness has a point. And the liberation movements, be it ANC, be it PAC, be it AZAP, they cannot rule because, you know, in the law of occupation, they are not a high contracting party. This brings us to the issue of 1913. That's why, even with the Expropriation Act, kukhulunywa in 1913.
Yeah.
Why kumele kukhulunywe in 1913? The last land,
Yeah.
it's actually in 1887.
Yeah.
Ungena phi 1913 lapho. Ngicela uye kuyo la ikhuluma nge previously racial laws. With the very same act, ikhuluma nga racially discriminative laws.
Yeah.
What are those laws? They don't outline those laws.
Yeah.
The only law leba outline it's 1913 Land Act.
Yeah.
Why yona kuphela? Surely there must be a reason for that.
There were many other laws.
There were many other laws.
Yeah.
Why particularly? What is so special about 1913? There's nothing special about 1913.
Yeah.
You see, Resolution 159 of 1855.
Yeah.
It's one of those resolutions that dispossesses the indigenous monarchs of their sovereignty.
Okay.
Colonial Laws Validity Act, number 28 and number 29 of 1865.
Okay.
Occupation Act, number 8 of 1886.
Yeah.
1886. The Squatters Act, number 11 of 1887.
Yeah.
Volksraad Resolution,
Yeah.
number 359 of 1891.
Okay.
Crown Lands
Yeah.
Disposal Ordinance, number 57 of 1903.
Okay. Okay.
South Africa Act of 1909.
Yeah.
Now, how many laws were there before 1913? There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
why uyenda 1913 special. When that act doesn't even take the sovereignty of indigenous people, it has been taken years back.
Yeah.
But then look into this. When was the ANC established?
1912.
1912. Any law that is before 1912, iyendani ku-ANC. It makes them irrelevant in the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Because they were not established
Exactly.
at that time. Yeah.
Exactly. It brings Emakosi back into the conversation. So you keep away Emakosi from the conversation, go to 1913, ibe a cut-off date in the constitution, in the land expropriation, in the land restitution. Then by saying constitution, it's everyone is equal before the law.
Yeah.
On the 19th of June 1913. Now, how does it cover on the 18th of June? A day before the act. So they're not covered by the law. So where is the equality in terms of the constitution? Yeah, but what's the constitution and that?
Yeah. I get you.
It's in that major constitution. So you see, whoever wrote the constitution, I remember how the constitution was emulated by the international community to say that's the best constitution ever. Now I'm going to tell you right now, that is the most nonsensical constitution you can ever find in the whole world, which violates the inalienable rights and inherent rights of indigenous people. This is what the constitution does. Mna kuthi ngicela ungivulele international covenant on civil and political rights.
Yeah.
Ungitshele ukuthi utshele nabalaleli ukuthi ithini that covenant
On civil and political rights.
Civil and political rights. What does the covenant say?
Yeah. Okay. That one's adopted on 16 December 1966.
Yes, it's input.
Okay. Which article should I?
Yeah.
Which article should I read?
Article 1. Article 1. Sorry, Article 1.
Yeah.
Article 1 rather, sorry about that.
All peoples have the right of self-determination.
Yes.
By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development.
Voila. It's ini. Ngicela ungifundzele na futhi.
All peoples have the right of self-determination.
Yes.
By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status.
Yes.
And freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development.
Yes. Now, if you go back to the provision of this piece of law, it emanates from invasion and occupation.
Yeah.
Ayibuyi indzawo. Yabo.
Yeah.
Now, these Dutch brothers here who claims to have the rights to self-determination, abanalo lelo lungelo lelo.
Yeah.
Because they are the invaders. They are the occupiers. Bantu labane right here, self-determination, are the indigenous monarchs. Ngicela ungivulele section 235 ya the constitution uve ukuthi ithini nge-self-determination.
Yeah.
Now, that section is very quiet on political rights.
Okay.
That section in the Constitution, it's quiet on political rights.
Yeah. Section 235, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's in.
Let's learn. The right of the South African people as a whole to self-determination as manifested in this constitution, does not preclude, within the framework of this right, recognition of the notion of the right of self-determination of any community sharing a common cultural and language heritage within a territorial entity in the Republic or in any other way determined by national legislation.
Ayikhulumi political rights.
No, it doesn't.
Ayikhulumi economic rights.
Yeah.
It's very silent. And it's for that reason it's silent. To relegate our sovereign right, which is a political right, to a cultural corner.
Yeah, I really get you, and I like the fact that you are referencing everything that you are saying. It's not, we are not blowing hot air, which is very interesting for me, which is very enlightening. So, in essence, with the discussions we've already had, you are saying that let's go back to the beginning of things and do right.
That is the only way.
Because now we are where we are, but we are not supposed to be here. Ramaphosa is probably respondent number one in a case where we say South Africa is not a country, a legitimate country.
No.
Yeah.
You see, Ramaphosa, mncane kule ndlu le.
No, but let's say you do it today.
No.
So who's presiding over the illegitimate state if there was a case that was going to be argued now?
The question will be, what is the applicable law to this case?
Yeah.
That is the question.
At present.
Yes.
What is it?
The applicable law is international humanitarian law. It's the law of invasion and occupation.
You've referred it.
It's not apartheid.
It's not.
No.
It goes back there.
It goes back emuva. Invasion. That is where things began. And that is the law. Now, when we speak of that law, we speak of the law that regulates relationship between a state and a state.
Yeah.
That is international humanitarian law. King Mkhatshwa and Abatembu, they were a nation and a state.
Yes.
King Mkhatshwa and the Zulu nation, they were a nation and a state.
Yeah.
King Makikele and Baroka, they were a state and a nation. So they were invaded by the British and the Dutch, which are states. So the law, the applicable law in the conversation will be international humanitarian law.
Okay.
So who will be the respondent number one?
Okay, now I get it.
You get it?
Yeah.
It will be those states that invaded.
Dutch and yeah. Okay.
And those states create Ramaphosa. So Ramaphosa will be.
So it's just.
We'll
write an affidavit.
Insignificant.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because inzaba yemakhosi ngete yatekwa nguRamaphosa akanalo ilungelo lokuteka lenzaba le. Mncane kakhulu. With due respect to Ramaphosa as a person, but as the president and the status sakhe mncane kule ndzaba le. Angisho ukuthi mncane yena ngeminyaka ngiyamrespecta indvodza, you always respect a man.
Yeah.
But in this matter we're talking political issues.
Yeah.
We're talking sovereign issues.
Yeah.
So he's got no locus standi in this matter. Neither is his state or cabinet. They cannot talk about the issues of the land. Abanalo lungelo. Bantu labanelungelo ukukhuluma ngomhlaba mnakethu is the invader and the invaded.
Yeah. No, I do get you. But now this whole state of South Africa we're talking about has interfered so much and influenced the structure of the monarchs, has infiltrated in certain instances. You know, under apartheid, there were puppets that were appointed. They were not the the real chiefs. We know that. You know, up to this day, how do we get everything right? Identify the rightful heirs to the monarchies that were there. You know, I'm trying to say, if you try to rectify this matter, as you say, the right way, how do you identify the real people? Because now everything has been diluted. Yeah, most royal families, the real ones, were removed by the apartheid regime. They put their own puppets, whom I believe are still sitting on the thrones that they are not supposed to be sitting on.
You see, what I like about Europeans, they're like a thief who leaves evidence.
They leave evidence behind.
They leave evidence.
They don't clean the paper trail.
No, they're actually proud by leaving evidence. They record the evidence. There's one thing I like about them. So they cannot say it has never happened. Even one day they'll come and say, listen, we didn't do this.
Yeah.
They leave evidence.
Yeah.
Evidence mnakethi ikhona. Yeah, who the real people are, bathole bani kuphi nini. We just have to go back to it.
Yeah.
It's not a difficult thing. No, it's not. Labe bakhona batsatshwela lo mhlaba. In fact, most in the present discourse, they are not even being recognized. It's only a few that is recognized. Those who are recognized, they don't have sovereignty. Obviously, it becomes now internal matters. It becomes a family thing between the monarchs, which has nothing to do with the invader or his system.
Okay.
Thina bantwana bengadi kumele singene elowanje endlini. Sicoce lendzaba le. Siteke lendzaba le.
Mara ningafaki lo muntu.
Singafaki lo muntu lo locabanisayo.
Yeah,
no, singafaki lo muntu. Nale mthetho yakhe singayifaki. I mean, surely I'll be very blunt. How can King Misizulu be recognized by President Ramaphosa? It's impossible. It's utter disrespect to the monarch. But how the Zulu people are not seeing it beats me. Ubokhumbula ukuthi i-sovereignty of the Zulu monarchy yathathwa King Victoria, wayithathela King Mkhatshwa. He was even arrested. The evidence is still fresh. Why is the Zulu monarch not sovereign? Why? Why is Abatembu monarch not sovereign? Why is Baroka not sovereign? When the British monarch is sovereign, when the Spanish monarch is sovereign, when the Swedish monarch is sovereign, no way. You name all the monarchs in Europe are sovereign. What about us?
Because of the constitution.
Because of invasion. Because of invasion.
But of late, I mean,
no.
you said the King of England is not. He has got powers.
He's not constituted.
He's not constituted. He's not serving under any constitution.
Yes.
So, because of the constitution, my point is on this, because we have this constitution. So that's the reason. Okay, but now it goes back to invasion. Of course, it goes way back.
In fact, let me clarify this. Internationally, there are two bodies of law.
Yeah.
Let me repeat that.
Yeah.
They are One is international humanitarian law that regulates a relationship between a state and a state.
Yeah.
An international humanitarian law that regulates a relationship between a state and its citizens.
Yeah.
Right. The relationship between Abatembu Kingdom or the Zulu Kingdom, it's regulated by international humanitarian law, not international human rights law. Obviously, in breaking international humanitarian law, you violate human rights. So it's going to be intertwined.
Okay.
But the applicable law becomes IHL, international humanitarian law.
Okay.
Now, if we stick to that applicable law, then we'll be able to find solutions. But if we stick to international human rights law, we'll never find solution because it now brings in apartheid.
Okay.
They even, you see, the international community is smart.
Yeah.
They even criminalize apartheid.
Yeah.
They don't criminalize invasion. You see, you go come back and see these guys, in their purpose was to destroy us.
Yeah. Completely.
UN allows General Smuts to be the founding member of the United Nations and assign the UN Charter, knowing fully Gutsi General Smuts is an occupier. So the UN plays a part in codifying occupation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how do you say they're innocent in this matter? They go on and popularize apartheid and criminalize it. They say it's a crime against humanity. But what caused apartheid? Invasion.
Yeah.
Why are they not criminalizing invasion?
Yeah, they are not going back to
what is
the
their
root
purpose?
of the problem.
The purpose is to validate occupation and make those occupiers the rightful owner to this territory when they are not.
Yeah.
That is why you have groups like Afrikaner saying this, the Ison's land. Which land? Of my forefathers? You call it yours? No, you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you, but now if you try to challenge this matter legally in the international court, who is there? Those people, those judges there, are they going to be sensitive to what you are saying?
Well, I think the whole thing boils down to honor. The whole thing boils down to truth and upholding the law. The facts are there. The historic facts are there. The law is there. They've never had a case like that. Maybe it's about time they have it. Then let's see what they're gonna say.
Yeah, exactly. And well, we've got many issues to talk about, and I see now we've already taken 1.5 hours.
Oh my God!
We're gonna have to break it down and go further or deeper on these issues.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got to. But now, my last question will be: I'm imagining we've got Swaziland, we've got Lesotho, Swaziland. Well, we know what is happening there. We know the absolute monarch is the last in the world, obviously. Why I'm mentioning these two countries, I'm trying to understand where you are sitting. Let's say this case goes to court. Let's say things go okay. The monarchs get their land back, their powers and everything that they lost. What do you imagine should be what how do I ask this question? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, after all this, what you have been saying has been corrected. How do you see South Africa as it is now and in the future, after all the right things have been done, the monarchs have been, the powers of the monarchs have been restored, the land and everything? What do you imagine? Do you imagine a situation like Lesotho, like Eswatini, or there is a better way? I don't understand. I don't know. I think you get my question. I might be fancy, but yeah.
The better way is to go back to our customs as indigenous people.
Yeah.
We ruled before. We had our own version of democracy.
Yeah.
The African democracy is a version that is based on consensus, not on numbers.
Yeah.
Now, that is why Tingundla.
Yes. Yes.
Tingundla is where the public goes and decide on issues that needs to be implemented.
Yeah.
That is democracy. Good, see, there's never been votes or not. It's immaterial. What is material is the livelihoods of the people. Now, that is our indigenous system.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this opportunity.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to make a lot of people angry, but I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Let me take this opportunity to applaud or to pay tribute to His Majesty King Sobhuza for bringing the Swati culture into governance.
Yeah.
Because the constitution that he was given by the British is the similar constitution that was given to Lesotho.
Okay.
His Majesty changed that constitution to suit eMaswati's tradition and culture. I pay tribute to His Majesty. May his soul rise and protect the indigenous democracy practiced by eMaswati. I know a lot of people will think, there's no democracy as Eswatini. But you see, when you talk of Western democracy or you talk of traditional democracy, that's where we're going to have differences. We are indigenous people.
Yeah.
We need to promote ourselves. So I pay homage to His Majesty.
No, the thing is just to add there. The thing is, the African democracy that you're talking about, it was there, but obviously the human beings are presiding over it. So obviously there will be, some people will like, some people will dislike how they preside over that system.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So where we're standing in conjunction with Lesotho, Botswana, and Eswatini is based on Resolution 1817 that says South Africa must restore umhlaba weBasotho, umhlaba weMaswati, umhlaba weBatswana. But it's not only that. It must return umhlaba kaZulu, umhlaba waMdirara, umhlaba waPiletsi, umhlaba waMakikele. All these territories must be restored back to its original owners and original structures. So this is the cry. This is Indigenous Forum's cry that the indigenous monarchs must be restored, must be re-established and repatriated as provided by international humanitarian law, particularly Article 3B of the additional protocols. If they have not re-established or respected that piece of law, South Africa remains an occupier of indigenous monarchs. And South Africa remains an illegal administrator.
Okay. Yeah, I think
I wanna put up an awareness here.
Yeah.
In closing,
Yeah.
a very interesting discovery. There's a party in South African politics called African Transformation Movement.
Okay.
I've researched on all the political parties.
Yeah.
When I went deep into the African Transformation Movement,
Yes.
it's a brainchild of PAC and AZAP.
Yeah.
Now, that is why in their slogans, they say Azania.
Okay.
They don't say South Africa. Simply because they don't recognize South Africa.
Yeah.
They recognize Azania.
Okay.
And I did speak to the spiritual guide of the organization, Chief Apostle Caesar Nongonga.
Yeah.
What he told me, even what he preaches in his church, is the restoration of the indigenous monarchs.
Okay.
Why? Because God created kingdoms. God never created governments or politicians. God created kingdoms to kings. He gave them wisdom to lead his people according to his laws. Wisdom which he bestowed upon kings. Now I said, wow, hold on. I mean, this resonates well with our organization, Indigenous Forum. Because with Indigenous Forum, we believe in the restoration of the indigenous monarchs.
Yeah.
So we have established a partnership with the African Transformation Movement in the restoration of the indigenous monarchs.
Okay.
Because that's what African Transformation Movement and the spiritual leader propagates, even in his church, the 12th Apostolic Church.
Yeah.
That is the first church where I've went into their sermon. They speak of God's creation of kingdoms and the restoration of the indigenous monarchs.
Okay.
Based on God's creation.
Yeah.
Now, that is the only church I've went to. I was born in Catholic Church. I went to other churches. I've never heard pastors or fathers speaking about the restoration of the indigenous monarchs as created by God. The only time I've heard that in church was when Chief Apostle Nongonga was preaching that. I was astounded. I was like, wow. Now, I'm thinking, all indigenous people worth their pride, they should listen to African Transformation Movement. If it's my opportunity to promote African Transformation Movement and Indigenous Forum, I will do so, because we represent the real aspirations of the indigenous people, the ownership of their lands, their territories, their sovereignty, and their economy, their resources, their culture, their tradition. They are paramount to the authority and the sovereignty. So, in a nutshell, people should know who they are as indigenous people, who they've been and where they are going.
Exactly.
We are not going anywhere with South Africa. We will continue to have a million parties, but who's benefiting out of everything that is confusion here? If you can go and sit at the border there, look at our minerals as they go out of our country. That is theft on mineral right.
Exactly,
Contravening Section 24B, Roman figure 3 of the Constitution. Hallelujah.
Hey, I get you. I must say, umuntu ufundile namuhla. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward. There are many issues we still need to discuss that we've discussed off air. I hope next time you're gonna come and then we unpack them, these issues, especially the work that you do as the Indigenous Forum, which is also a breath of fresh air, really, because there should be such organizations betting for the other groups. Yeah, I really appreciate it, my brother. Thanks a lot for your time. And to our listeners and viewers, thanks a lot for watching us again. Remember to subscribe, like us. And those in business, please contact us. You know, we've got the business feature, the People's Hustle. It's still going on as well. So please do contact us on the details that are provided on the screen. Thanks a lot. Until next time.